There will be quite a few new challenges that you're facing after you return to work after maternity leave. For so long, you've been focused on your career, putting your time and brain space there. But once you become a mother, your life changes and starts to revolve around feeding your baby. There's a lot of other things that come with having a new baby too, baths, diapers, all of these things, but the main focus is really feeding your baby. And however you decide to do that is wonderful. We focus here on supporting moms who are breastfeeding and going to be using a pump when they go back to work. And what they need to do is pump fast and efficiently so that they can maintain their milk supply and have milk to feed their baby so they can continue breastfeeding. Now, while you're on maternity leave, it's a little bit easier to tackle this because it's really your main focus. But when you return to work, all of a sudden, motherhood is bleeding into your career, which might be something that you have not previously experienced. When you were at work, you could work. When you were home, you could do home things. But if you are a breastfeeding mom returning to work, these things really start to blend together, and it can pose many roadblocks that I see quite often with the moms that I work with. So whether you're working at home or in an office or in a busy clinic or whatever you're doing, let's talk about some of the major things that I see getting in the way here. Because just because you have a baby now, you are still expected to complete the same amount of work that you were before, although now you're taking 2 to 3 hours a day to express milk and deal with that stuff. So let's figure this out. Really quick before we get started, I just did want to mention that there is some information down below on our Pumping for Working Moms program. This is a long-term coaching program to help you through all of this stuff with the guidance of a team of breast pump experts. So if you want more information on that and how that works, that's down below. But let's just jump right in. The first thing, and probably the biggest thing that a lot of moms are worried about when they go back to work, is time management. And this is a difficult thing to talk about because it's very complex. Previously, especially if you have a career that you love or a very busy job, a career that demands a lot from you, this probably looked like managing your calendar, meetings and tasks that need done, whatever you've got on there. But now we have to insert milk expression in there as well. And this becomes tricky. I think this is like one of the most common questions that I get aside from milk supply problems is how do I create a workable pumping schedule for my work? And there's lots of ideas on Pinterest. And actually I've created another video on where I reviewed several of the Pinterest pumping schedules, and I'll put that up top for you. But really the main goal is to find something that's doable for you. And for me, that really looks like balancing science and practical. So we have the science of making milk. We know what that looks like. We know what we need to do to get there. But how can we fit that practically into your life? Sometimes it's a sacrifice of one or the other to find the perfect balance. And it's different for everyone. I wish I could just tell you that pumping every 2 to 3 hours while you're away from your baby is sufficient. But when we're talking about busy jobs, especially for career-driven women, this becomes challenging because you now have to take time out of your day to interrupt whatever you're doing and go express milk. So logistically, it's challenging. Mentally, it's challenging as well. And this is probably one of the major roadblocks that most new moms that are going back to work after maternity leave are concerned about. The second biggest roadblock is obviously milk supply. And this really boils down to inefficient pumping, because this is probably where we see the most disconnect in what we want. We want a full milk supply so we can continue to breastfeed, or if you're exclusively pumping or whatever you're ended up doing, we need to maintain your milk supply with your breast pump. And oftentimes this is easier said than done. This also plays into the first thing we just talked about, which is time management. If you're wasting time with long pumping sessions with ineffective skills, this is just making your life harder, and it will kill your milk supply. So this is a really important piece, is learning how to pump fast and efficiently. And when I say fast, I don't mean that we can have 8-minute pumping sessions or that we can slap on a wearable pump and just continue to do your job and like everything's going to work out fine. I would love that for you. Is it realistic? Probably not. So we really have to figure out what are the biggest things that affect you the most. How can you get the milk out fastest? How can you get fast letdowns? How can we fully empty the breast when we are pumping? And which things make the biggest difference for you in your milk supply? I've had moms that I've worked with who can pump less than other moms. Some have to stick on a very strict 2-hour schedule, and they see some big differences when they don't. And this is all kind of part of the experimentation process. We love to do this on maternity leave, so that's probably the ideal time for a working mom to come and work with us because it's so much easier to tackle and experiment on maternity leave. It's easier to pump at home, all of these things like that. But we do get a lot of moms that come to us back to work and struggling, and we can figure this out, but you just do not have time to waste with inefficient pumping. The third thing that we see pretty often with career-driven women who are returning to work is managing their stress load. And I know this is probably something that's not foreign to you as a working mom. You know what work stress is like, and no surprise, that same work stress is still going to be there. But now we're also adding on milk supply anxiety, right? Which is, I don't know if it's a real term. I might have made it up, but it's where you're just anxious about your milk supply, sometimes for good reason and sometimes for not. There is something called a perceived low milk supply, which is where you think you have a low milk supply for whatever reason, but actually you don't. I do see this pretty often with moms who are just enoughters, meaning that they have just enough milk supply for their baby. And for some reason they think it's low because they're just like barely hitting the needs of their baby. But actually, that's a perfect milk supply, right? Your body has created only what your baby needs. That's awesome. So a lot of it is getting realistic expectations, reframing what is actually expected, what is actually doable. It may be doable that you're able to have a little bit extra every day and we're saving milk in the freezer for some unexpected things, or maybe you want to quit pumping early, something like that. This is doable, but we really have to figure out, based on what you're doing in your job, what your milk supply is like, what your baby's needs are, how to manage this. And again, this is all separate from your work stress. If you are in a career that you have worked hard to get there, or that is meaningful to you, or that you have to be there maybe, that work stress is still there. So really finding the balance there. We can't have pumping and milk totally take over your life. You still have to deal with your work responsibilities. So I think finding the easiest way, the most calm way to deal with your milk supply, again, it all comes down to efficiency. I've said this on the channel before, but efficiency is my love language. And I love to help moms make pumping more efficient because as a working mom, you just do not have time to waste on inefficient pumping and low pumping output. The next roadblock that we see pretty often is balancing the logistics. And I think this is where a lot of moms get hung up. They think that going back to work and pumping is all logistics, and it's definitely not, as we kind of just talked about in the mental stress load that you're now dealing with. But the logistics are a really challenging part of returning to the workplace after maternity leave. You're trying to balance childcare, maybe helping your nanny figure out how to give bottles appropriately. Daycare is another tricky thing. We're trying to feed the baby an appropriate amount so that you don't have to pump more than you have to, right? We've got to store the milk. We've got to haul your pump around. We've got to find a place at work to do the pumping. We've got to make time in our schedule to do that. And then that's all like during work. And then after work, you got to go home and be a mother to a baby and do any other family responsibilities that you have. Maybe you have a spouse or partner and they need some attention too. You got to wash bottles at the end of the day. You got to get everything ready to do it all again tomorrow. And it's a lot of logistics. So again, I encourage you to find the simplest ways to take out anything from your life that you don't need right now, that we can make simpler or that you can delegate to somebody else. The easiest one is to have a partner or support person washing bottle and pump parts for you in the night. I find that that is the thing that annoys moms the most, especially long term, is that they just get sick of washing stuff. And I don't blame them. It's really annoying. If you want a step-by-step guide on how to do all of this, how to make all of this simple, come and talk with our team. There's a link down below to learn more and schedule a call with us. That really is our specialty, finding that calm confidence to pump fast and efficiently. We don't have time to waste on this, right? So I know the logistics are a lot, but those are just some ideas of some of the things you might face. I encourage you to find the simplest way to do that. Sometimes that's hiring an expert to walk you through it and just give it to you so you can do it and forget it. But if that's not in the cards for you, finding ways to simplify is really important. Another roadblock that I see pretty often is that moms just get burnt out. And I remember saying this a lot as a doula as well. You can, in that sense, make it to the end of your birth. You can have no drugs, you can do all of the things. But if you're doing that at the expense of other things that would make it easier or more enjoyable or that someone can help you with, nobody gives you a gold star for dragging your tired, broken body across the finish line. I want you to meet your goals, but I don't want you to do it at the expense of your sanity. There's a really common phrase that your worth is not measured in ounces, and I could not believe that more. You are not defined by the amount of breast milk that you pump for your baby. A really common goal for working moms is to want to give breast milk for the first year of life. And that is a long time. It's also a short time in the big scheme of things, right? So it's not going to last forever. And I think that's an important concept to remember. And we usually see moms around the 6, 7, 8 month mark just feeling burnt out. And I hate to see that, especially when there are simpler and more efficient ways to pump and to have this be a smaller part of your life. It's a really important part of your life though, right? You're feeding your baby and you're doing it in the way that you want to do it. And we're here to support you. But as simple as we can make that is great because you really don't get a break outside of work. If you remember, back before you had your baby and you were a mother and balancing all of these things, you could go to work and then come home and unwind, take care of the other things you needed to do, refresh and start another day. And you don't have that luxury anymore. I have 3 children. I went back to work. I work now. I'm a working mom right in there with you. And I know how exhausting it is to have no breaks. You're doing your job, which is now filled with milk breaks. You're coming home, still dealing with milk, baby, everything. It's a lot. And I just want you to know that I see you. I know this is hard and I know that you can do it. My advice to you is to simplify as much as possible. Invest in help that can make this easier, whether that's a nanny, whether that's someone to come help clean the house, right? I have had cleaners in the past and I have absolutely loved them so that I can focus on my work. Whether that's hiring a pumping expert like myself and my team to help make that part simpler and easy for you. We would love to help you do that. And these kind of investments in yourself are really a long-term investment in your sanity. Like I said, nobody's going to give you a gold star for making it to your goal and completely wearing yourself out. And I don't want to see that for you. I want to end this video by saying you can have it all. You can have a career and motherhood. You can be a working mom who breastfeeds her baby and meets her goals. You can thrive in your career and pump breast milk for your baby. You can do both things, but we have to find the simplest and most efficient way to do it. Like I said, if you want to come and work with me, I would love to talk with you more about that, but I wish you the best of luck. And I hope this video was encouraging and giving you some ideas of what you might be up against and some ideas on how to tackle that. It's not going to be easy, but it is going to be worth it. I know you can do it. Good luck to you and happy pumping.